Before you try to change your life, there is something important you need to understand. Most of the struggles you face are not created by the world around you. They are created by patterns within you. Patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that repeat quietly, often without your awareness. This audiobook is not about blame. It is about clarity. It is about recognizing the ways you may be standing in your own path, not because you are weak, but because you are human. The mountain you are trying to climb is not your circumstances. It is not your past. It is not other people. The mountain is you. As you listen, you will begin to understand why change feels difficult, why progress sometimes collapses just as it begins, and how emotional patterns shape your habits, decisions, and identity. This is a calm, reflective audiobook designed for deep listening, not to rush you, not to overwhelm you, but to guide you toward awareness, healing, and alignment. If this audiobook adds value to your life, support Audio Vibes by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who may need these words today. Now, settle in. This is where understanding begins. This audiobook is an invitation to look inward with honesty and compassion. The Mountain is You is not about fixing what is broken. It is about understanding what has been misunderstood. Most people do not struggle because they lack ability or intelligence. They struggle because unresolved emotions, unconscious habits, and inner conflicts quietly shape their choices. Self-sabotage does not appear as destruction. It appears as hesitation, as comfort over growth, as knowing what to do but not doing it. And over time, these small moments build a life that feels stuck. In this audiobook, we will explore why these patterns form, how emotional triggers influence behavior, and why lasting change requires more than motivation or willpower. You will learn how awareness, emotional intelligence, and alignment can slowly remove the internal resistance that keeps you from moving forward. This is not a quick solution. It is a deep process, one that asks you to listen, reflect, and apply what resonates with you. You do not need to change everything at once. You only need to begin understanding yourself more clearly. As you continue listening, allow yourself to stay open. There is no pressure here, only insight, clarity, and the opportunity to grow from within. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Understanding Self-Sabotage. Self-sabotage is one of the most misunderstood patterns in personal growth. Most people assume it means intentionally destroying their own progress or making obviously harmful choices. In reality, self-sabotage is subtle. It shows up as delay, avoidance, emotional comfort, and repeated patterns that keep you in familiar territory, even when that territory no longer serves you. You may deeply want change, yet find yourself resisting it at the same time. This inner conflict is not a lack of discipline or intelligence. It is the nervous system choosing what feels safe over what feels unfamiliar. The mind does not always seek growth. It seeks predictability. Understanding this is the first step toward lasting transformation. I have divided this chapter into 4 parts. Part 1. Why we resist the very change we desire. Change represents uncertainty, and uncertainty feels threatening to the mind. Even positive change can feel unsafe if it challenges your identity or emotional comfort. This is why people often abandon goals just as progress begins. The mind prefers known discomfort over unknown possibility. Self-sabotage is not self-hatred. It is self-protection based on outdated beliefs. When you begin to grow, your mind asks a quiet question: who will I be if I succeed? If the answer feels unclear, resistance appears. Growth asks you to let go of familiar roles, coping mechanisms, and emotional habits. Until you understand this, you may confuse resistance with laziness. In truth, resistance is fear wearing the mask of comfort. Part 2. Emotional patterns that keep you stuck. Self-sabotage is deeply emotional. It often begins with unresolved feelings from the past: fear of failure, fear of success, fear of being seen, or fear of disappointment. These emotions do not disappear simply because you decide to improve your life. Instead, they shape your behavior quietly. You procrastinate, you overthink, you distract yourself. Not because you don't care, but because your emotions are trying to keep you within what feels emotionally manageable. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who dreamed of changing careers. She researched, planned, and imagined a better future. But every time she came close to taking action, she felt tired, overwhelmed, or distracted. She believed she lacked discipline. Over time, she realized the truth. She was afraid of disappointing others and afraid of trusting herself. Once she understood the emotional root, her behavior made sense. Awareness didn't change her life instantly, but it stopped the cycle of self-judgment, and that self-understanding became the beginning of real change. Self-sabotage weakens when it is understood, not attacked. Part 3. The comfort zone is not comfortable, it is familiar. The comfort zone is often described as a place of ease. In reality, it can be painful, limiting, and frustrating, but it is familiar, and familiarity feels safer than growth to the nervous system. When you stay in familiar patterns, even unhealthy ones, your mind knows what to expect. Growth introduces unpredictability. It asks you to trust yourself in new ways. This is why self-sabotage often appears right before progress. Many people wait until fear disappears before acting, but fear rarely disappears first. Action creates evidence. Evidence builds trust. Trust weakens fear. Here is a gentle reflection you can practice. Notice when you feel the urge to delay something important. Instead of forcing action, ask yourself what you are protecting yourself from. Awareness alone can soften resistance and make progress feel safer. Part 4. Awareness as the first step out of self-sabotage. You do not overcome self-sabotage by fighting yourself. You overcome it by understanding yourself. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates change. When you recognize your patterns, you stop identifying with them. You begin to see them as responses, not identity. This separation gives you power without pressure. Self-sabotage does not mean you're broken. It means your mind learned survival before growth, and what was once protective can now be gently rewritten. The mountain you face is not an enemy. It is a signal, a message asking for understanding, not force. As we move into the next chapter, we will explore emotional triggers and inner patterns, the deeper mechanisms that shape behavior beneath awareness. Chapter 2. Your emotional triggers and inner patterns. Every reaction you have carries a history. Every emotional response is connected to something deeper than the present moment. Most people believe they are reacting to what is happening now, but in reality, they are responding to familiar emotional patterns formed long ago. Until these patterns are understood, they quietly control behavior, decisions, and self-sabotaging habits. Emotional triggers are not weaknesses, they are signals. They reveal where awareness is needed. not where judgment should be placed. This chapter is about recognizing those signals and understanding how inner patterns shape your actions without your permission. I have divided this chapter into 4 parts. Part 1. What emotional triggers really are. An emotional trigger is an automatic emotional response that feels larger than the situation itself. A small comment feels personal. A delay feels like rejection. A mistake feels like failure. These reactions are intense not because of the moment, but because they are connected to unresolved emotional experiences from the past. Triggers bypass logic. They activate the nervous system before the rational mind has time to respond. This is why you may react in ways that surprise you, even when you know better. The body remembers what the mind has forgotten. Triggers form through repeated emotional experiences. Over time, the mind learns patterns: what feels threatening, what feels unsafe, and what must be avoided. These patterns become automatic, operating quietly beneath awareness. Understanding triggers does not remove them immediately, but it removes confusion, and confusion is what keeps people stuck. Part 2. How inner patterns shape behavior. Inner patterns are emotional habits. They influence how you respond to stress, conflict, uncertainty, and intimacy. These patterns develop early in life, often before you had the ability to choose differently. They were learned through observation, experience, and survival. For example, if expressing emotion once led to rejection, you may now suppress feelings. If effort once led to disappointment, you may avoid trying fully. These patterns feel personal, but they are learned responses, not identity. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who struggled with consistency. Every time he started something meaningful, he would lose momentum. He believed he lacked discipline. Over time, he realized that finishing things triggered fear. Completion meant evaluation. Evaluation reminded him of past criticism. Once he recognized this pattern, his behavior made sense. He wasn't lazy, he was protecting himself. Awareness didn't remove the fear immediately, but it allowed him to move forward with compassion instead of self-attack. Inner patterns do not disappear through force, they change through understanding. Part 3. The role of the nervous system. Many people try to change behavior without addressing the nervous system. When the nervous system feels unsafe, logic becomes irrelevant. The body prioritizes protection, not growth. This is why willpower often fails under emotional stress. When triggered, the nervous system shifts into survival mode. You may freeze, avoid, overreact, or shut down. These responses are automatic and learned. Emotional regulation begins with creating safety within the body. When the body feels calm, the mind becomes clear. When the body feels threatened, the mind becomes reactive. A simple awareness practice can help here. When you feel emotionally triggered, pause and bring attention to your breathing. Slow the breath slightly. Feel your body, not your thoughts. This small pause helps the nervous system shift out of survival and back into presence. You are not calming the emotion away, you are creating space around it. Part 4. Responding with awareness instead of habit. Awareness is the bridge between trigger and choice. Without awareness, patterns repeat. With awareness, response becomes possible. This does not mean you will always respond perfectly. It means you will respond consciously. When you notice a familiar emotional reaction, gently label it, not as good or bad, but simply as a pattern.
This act of noticing interrupts automation. It creates a moment of choice. You may still feel the emotion, but you are no longer controlled by it. Over time, repeated awareness weakens old patterns. Emotional reactions soften. Behavior becomes intentional. Self-trust begins to grow. Triggers lose their power not when they disappear, but when they are understood. In the next chapter, we will go deeper, exploring how healing the root cause of these patterns creates lasting change rather than temporary control.
Chapter 3. Healing the root, not the symptoms. Most people try to change their lives by fixing what is visible. They change habits, routines, or environments, hoping that behavior alone will solve deeper issues. While these changes can help temporarily, they often fail to last. This is because behavior is rarely the root problem. It is the symptom. Lasting transformation does not happen when you force yourself to act differently. It happens when you understand why you act the way you do. Until the root is addressed, the same patterns will return, even in different forms. This chapter is about learning how to create real change by working with the deeper emotional causes, not fighting the surface behaviors. I have divided this chapter into 4 parts. Part 1. Why willpower alone is not enough. Willpower is limited. It depends on energy, mood, and emotional state. When life becomes stressful or overwhelming, willpower fades. This is why people often fall back into old habits during difficult periods. If a habit is driven by unresolved emotion, forcing discipline against it creates internal conflict. You may succeed briefly, but resistance builds beneath the surface. Eventually, exhaustion or emotional pressure brings the old behavior back. Healing the root means understanding the emotional need behind the habit. Every behavior serves a purpose, even harmful ones. They protect, distract, soothe, or control emotional pain. When that need is ignored, the behavior persists. Change becomes sustainable only when the emotional need is addressed with awareness and compassion. Part 2. Understanding emotional wounds. Emotional wounds are experiences that were never fully processed. They remain stored in the body and mind, influencing reactions and beliefs. These wounds often come from moments when your needs were not met, your feelings were dismissed, or your safety felt threatened. Over time, the mind builds protective strategies around these wounds. These strategies become habits, patterns, and emotional defenses. What once protected you may now limit you. Let me tell you a story. There was a person who struggled with perfectionism. Every task had to be flawless or it felt like failure. This behavior created stress and burnout. Over time, they realized perfectionism was not about excellence. It was about avoiding criticism and rejection. When they began to understand this emotional wound, their behavior slowly softened. They learned to accept imperfection without fear. Healing did not mean removing standards. It meant removing fear from effort. Emotional wounds do not heal through avoidance. They heal through understanding and presence. Part 3. Compassion as a tool for change. Many people believe being compassionate toward themselves will make them weak or complacent. In reality, self-compassion creates safety, and safety allows growth. When you approach your patterns with kindness, resistance lowers. You stop fighting yourself and start listening. This creates openness, not avoidance. Compassion allows the nervous system to relax, making change feel possible. A simple reflection can support this process. When you notice a familiar self-sabotaging pattern, instead of asking what is wrong with you, ask what this part of you needs. This question shifts your mindset from judgment to curiosity. Over time, this curiosity creates insight and healing. Compassion does not excuse harmful behavior, it creates the conditions for change. Part 4. Integrating awareness into daily life. Healing the root is not a single realization, it is a gradual process of awareness and integration. Each time you respond differently to a familiar pattern, you strengthen a new pathway. Integration means applying understanding in daily moments. When discomfort arises, you stay present. When resistance appears, you pause. When emotion surfaces, you observe instead of reacting. Progress may feel slow, but it is steady. Healing works quietly. It rewrites patterns over time, not overnight. The goal is not to eliminate all emotional pain. The goal is to relate to it differently. As this chapter closes, remember this. You are not trying to become someone else. You are learning to return to yourself without fear. In the next chapter, we will explore emotional intelligence and inner stability, how to remain grounded, calm, and clear, even when life challenges you. Chapter 4. Building emotional intelligence and inner stability. Emotional intelligence is not about controlling emotions or avoiding them. It is about understanding them well enough that they no longer control you. Many people react automatically to life, driven by feelings they do not fully understand. Emotional intelligence brings awareness to these reactions and turns them into conscious responses. Inner stability is what allows you to remain steady even when emotions rise. It does not mean you feel calm all the time. It means you can experience emotion without being overwhelmed by it. This chapter is about developing that steadiness, a grounded presence that supports clarity, resilience, and growth. I have divided this chapter into 4 parts. Part 1. Awareness before control. You cannot regulate what you do not recognize. Emotional intelligence begins with awareness. Most emotional reactions happen quickly and unconsciously. Without awareness, the same patterns repeat. Awareness means noticing what you feel as it arises, not labeling it as good or bad, not trying to change it immediately, just observing. This observation creates distance between emotion and action. When you become aware of your emotions, they soften, they lose intensity. You stop identifying with them and begin relating to them. Awareness does not remove emotion, but it removes confusion. Inner stability grows when awareness becomes a habit. Part 2. Learning to pause instead of react. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. The space between them determines emotional intelligence. Most regret comes from reacting too quickly, not from responding thoughtfully. Let me tell you a story. There was someone who often reacted defensively during conversations. Any perceived criticism triggered anger or withdrawal. Over time, they practiced one small change, pausing before speaking. This pause felt uncomfortable at first, but it created clarity. That pause allowed emotion to settle before words were chosen. Conversations became calmer, relationships improved. Emotional control was not achieved by force, but by slowing down. The pause is a powerful tool. It gives you back choice. Part 3. Regulating the nervous system. Emotions live in the body, not just the mind. When the nervous system is overwhelmed, emotional reactions intensify. This is why calm thinking becomes difficult during stress. Regulation begins with the body. Gentle breathing, posture awareness, and slowing physical movement help signal safety to the nervous system. When the body feels safe, emotional responses soften. Here is one simple practice. When emotions rise, slow your breathing slightly. Focus on the sensation of breath rather than thoughts. This creates grounding. You are not suppressing emotion, you are supporting your system through it. Emotional intelligence grows when the body and mind work together. Part 4. Stability as a skill, not a personality trait. Some people appear naturally calm, but inner stability is not a personality trait. It is a practiced skill. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, you strengthen it. Stability does not mean avoiding discomfort. It means staying present through it. Over time, emotional waves pass more quickly. Triggers lose intensity. Self-trust grows. Inner stability allows you to face challenges without collapsing or hardening. It gives you emotional resilience, the ability to bend without breaking. Emotional intelligence is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming emotionally skilled. As we move into the next chapter, we will explore alignment, how bringing your thoughts, emotions, and actions into harmony reduces inner conflict and strengthens self-trust. Chapter 5. Creating alignment between mind, body, and actions. Inner conflict is one of the greatest sources of exhaustion in life. It happens when your thoughts say one thing, your emotions feel another, and your actions reflect something entirely different. Over time, this misalignment creates stress, self-doubt, and a sense of being disconnected from yourself. Alignment is the process of bringing these parts together. When your mind, body, and actions move in the same direction, life feels simpler. Decisions become clearer. Energy increases. Progress feels natural instead of forced. This chapter is about restoring that inner harmony. I have divided this chapter into 4 parts. Part 1. Why misalignment creates inner resistance. Misalignment often begins with ignoring internal signals. You may know what matters to you, but repeatedly act against it. Each time this happens, self-trust weakens. The mind becomes confused, the body becomes tense, and motivation fades. When your actions do not match your values, the nervous system experiences stress. This stress shows up as fatigue, procrastination, or emotional discomfort. You may try to push harder, but effort alone cannot fix misalignment. Alignment is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters consistently. Once actions reflect values, resistance begins to dissolve. Part 2. Listening to the body's signals. The body often communicates before the mind understands. Tension, restlessness, and fatigue are signals, not flaws. Ignoring these signals creates disconnection. Listening to them builds awareness. Alignment requires noticing how actions affect the body. When something feels draining or restrictive, it is often a sign of misalignment. When something feels steady and grounded, it is often aligned with your values. Let me tell you a story. There was a person who felt constantly exhausted despite success. On the surface, life looked productive, but internally, something felt off. Through reflection, they realized they were living according to expectations, not values. Once they adjusted priorities, energy returned. Alignment restored vitality. The body does not lie. It reflects alignment or resistance. Part 3. Small, consistent actions build self-trust. Alignment is not achieved through dramatic change. It is built through small, consistent actions that match intention. Each aligned action strengthens self-trust. When you do what you say you will do, even in small ways, confidence grows. This consistency sends a powerful message to the mind: you are reliable. Over time, self-trust becomes natural. Here is a gentle practice. Choose one daily action that reflects your values. Keep it small and realistic. Commit to it without negotiation. This builds alignment quietly, without pressure. Alignment grows through repetition, not intensity. Part 4. Living in integrity with yourself. Integrity is not about perfection. It is about honesty. It is about acting in ways that reflect who you truly are, not who you think you should be. When you live in integrity with yourself, decision-making becomes easier. You stop second-guessing. You stop betraying your own needs. Life feels grounded. Alignment does not remove challenges. It gives you clarity within them. When mind, body, and actions move together, inner conflict fades. Progress becomes sustainable. You begin trusting yourself again. In the next chapter, we will explore transformation, how becoming the person who no longer self-sabotages changes everything from the inside out.
Chapter 6. Becoming the person who no longer self-sabotages. Transformation is not about fixing yourself. It is about becoming aware of who you already are beneath the patterns, habits, and defenses you developed to survive. Self-sabotage fades not because you fight it, but because you outgrow it. This chapter is about identity, the quiet shift that happens when awareness, healing, and alignment come together. Becoming someone who no longer self-sabotages does not mean you will never struggle again. It means struggle no longer controls your direction. You respond with understanding instead of reaction. You choose growth instead of avoidance. I have divided this chapter into 4 parts. Part 1. Identity shapes behavior. Your behavior is a reflection of how you see yourself. If you identify as someone who struggles, avoids, or fails, your actions will unconsciously reinforce that identity. Change becomes difficult when behavior and identity are misaligned. True transformation begins when identity shifts. When you see yourself as someone capable of growth, your actions follow naturally. Identity does not change through repeated affirmations. It changes through repeated evidence. Each aligned action sends a message to the mind. This is who I am now. Over time, that message becomes belief. Part 2. Releasing the need to stay the same. Self-sabotage often protects identity. Even harmful patterns can feel familiar and safe. Letting go of them means stepping into the unknown. The mind resists this not because change is bad, but because familiarity feels safer than growth. Let me tell you a story. There was someone who always described themselves as not consistent. This identity shaped their behavior. Every setback reinforced the story. One day, they stopped repeating it. They focused on showing up once each day without judgment. Slowly, their identity shifted. They no longer saw themselves as inconsistent. They became someone learning consistency. That shift changed everything. You are not your past patterns. You are the awareness noticing them. Part 3. Choosing growth over comfort. Growth asks for courage. Comfort
asks for repetition. Each day, you choose between what feels familiar and what moves you forward. Self-sabotage weakens when growth becomes a conscious choice. This does not mean pushing yourself constantly. It means staying honest. When you notice avoidance, you gently redirect. When fear appears, you stay present. Here is one simple reflection. When faced with a decision, ask yourself which option supports the person you are becoming. This question shifts focus from comfort to alignment. Over time, growth becomes natural. Part 4. Living with awareness and compassion. The person who no longer self-sabotages is not perfect. They are aware. They respond instead of react. They treat themselves with compassion. Compassion does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means holding yourself accountable without punishment. This balance creates safety and growth. As awareness becomes integrated, self-sabotage loses its grip. Patterns soften. Choices become intentional. You stop fighting yourself and start supporting yourself. The mountain you once struggled to climb becomes the ground you stand on. Not because it disappeared, but because you changed how you relate to it. This is not the end of growth. It is the beginning of living with clarity, alignment, and self-trust. And with that, this journey comes full circle.
As this audiobook comes to an end, take a moment to pause. Notice what feels different inside you right now. Not excitement, not motivation, but awareness. Because awareness is where real change begins. You don't need to climb the mountain all at once. You don't need to become someone else overnight. Every insight you gain today is a step forward. Every moment of self-honesty is progress. The mountain was never outside of you. It was built from old beliefs, emotional patterns, and unconscious habits. And as you've learned, nothing that was built can't be understood, softened, and transformed. If this audiobook helped you even a little, carry it with you into your daily life. Return to these ideas when you feel stuck. Use them when old patterns try to pull you back. Growth is not loud. It is quiet, steady, and deeply personal. Thank you for spending this time with Audio Vibes. If this message resonated with you, support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who may need it today. We will see you in the next audiobook from Audio Vibes.